Good morning, Ignite Your Marriage Tribe. I am so glad to be on here with you today because I got some important stuff to talk to you about. First of all, if you're interested in joining our members group that we're rolling out within the next month and being a founding member, which means you get the deal for half price, and you also will get an affiliate link so that as you help us grow, you make some money. Shoot me an email to d@dbonnie.com. So I want to tell you a little story. I was years ago starting to run. I got to get back into it. I know that my health is important, but I was starting to run and I made it up to 4 miles. And I actually posted, this was probably like August or September of a certain year. And then I actually posted on Facebook, hey, I ran 4 miles. Maybe I'll run the Indianapolis 500 half marathon. And a buddy of mine from residency, who is a runner, said, D. Bonnie, if you run that, I will run it with you in a pink tutu. And so I'm like, all right, it's on. And so I started training for it and then went and picked him up the day of the mini marathon. And what did he have on? But a pink tutu. And it was so fun. It was so fun because I had put the work and effort into it. And I had trained my body to the point that I could run 13.1 miles, and he did it with me, and that was super helpful. He had a shirt on that said D. Bonnie Pace Team, so that was really enjoyable. But my point is, like, I put the work in, I invested in myself, and changed how I did life because I became more of a runner than when I was struggling to do 4 miles. And at the end of that, there was such a sense of accomplishment that it wasn't really pride. It was just that, man, I did this. Like, I set this physical goal, which I'd never done in my life. I set this physical goal and I was able to accomplish that. And it took a lot of work. If you've ever run a half marathon, you know that that's not simple or easy, especially for somebody like me who wasn't a runner. And so it makes me think, though, about our relationships and what's waiting for us over the next hill. Because I think so many times in our marriages, we get stuck in this place where all we see is, maybe fighting and lack of peace, lack of contentment. We kind of disengage from one another. And yet, if we're willing to fight through the obstacles and the suffering and get to the other side of that hill, there's a blessing waiting, and no different from what I experienced, because I had to overcome obstacles. I had to overcome my body telling me, you can't do this. And I had to do the work. And what came with that satisfaction, was joy. Now, we've talked before, joy is different than happiness. Happiness is very circumstantial and usually doesn't take a lot of effort to get. Like, you don't have to work to get happiness. Something just happens to you, right? That's why it's called happiness. But with joy takes oftentimes some suffering to get to. I mean, there's some changes in us from the inside out to live this life in which we have this pervasive sense of joy in us. And guys, I think that's waiting for you in your relationship. I think that as we roll our sleeves up and do the work, God starts changing who we are individually and then changes us as a couple. Because I got to tell you, you have some character defects. Like, you're not a perfect person and you are married to an imperfect person. Now, that part you're probably aware of. You're like, oh gosh, Dee, I know she's not perfect. She makes me miserable. And yet, you're no grand prize either. Like, you have problems that you can't even see. And those are causing problems in your relationship. In fact, I'm working with a couple. I'm doing some relationship coaching with a couple. And it's so amazing to see them starting to transform after just a couple of weeks, where they have different thought patterns. And I know that on the other side of this hill that they need to conquer, there's this abundant life waiting for them. There's this incredible marriage. And what excites me about that is it's not going to only impact their children, it will impact their grandchildren who aren't even born yet, and their great-grandchildren, because it's going to remodel in the minds of their kids how marriage should be done. right? And so this household is transforming so that they can show their children, hey, this is how we do life and marriage. And I want you to set the bar high when you choose a mate. And I want you to have a home filled with peace and joy and contentment. And I think that so many times we disengage from one another physically, right? Maybe we actually withdraw, or emotionally or spiritually, like we disconnect. And I know that I've done that before, where I just put up these walls where I'm like, okay, you and I are not getting along, and I'm going to protect myself. I'm going to make it so that you can't hurt me, right? I'm impervious to you. I'm water. I'm whatever the phrase is. You're glue. Whatever you say bounces off of me and sticks to you. I'm rubber. You're glue. Yeah. Sorry, it's been a long time since I was 7. But my point is that in your relationship, if you are willing to roll up your sleeves and do the work, there's a blessing waiting for you in the future, because it's going to change how you do life. It will affect every aspect of your life. I like how Booker T. Washington said, success is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached in life as by the obstacles which he or she has overcome. So if you just fell into an awesome marriage, right, that really hasn't resulted in changing your character. You didn't have to work to get that. And I think that doesn't just happen. I mean, maybe some people out there have had marriage modeled so well by their parents that they just know how to have a great relationship. Maybe they start off their relationship founded on God, and there's little bumps in the road here and there, but in general, but that's not most of us. Most of us have to learn this stuff through suffering. But what happens is, rather than do that, rather than persevere, we just withdraw. Maybe we stay together. Maybe we don't. I mean, I've told you I'm divorced twice. I've screwed this up. That's the only reason you and I are having a conversation, is because God got a hold of me and was like, you need to change, buddy. You keep ruining marriages. And so don't miss out on the blessing that's waiting, because if you disconnect and you disengage with your spouse and you just settle for mediocrity, there's no blessing in that. The blessing comes from doing the work. I like how Oprah actually said, let me find it here. Sorry, I thought I had it. Well, look at me. I don't have it apparently. Yep, it's gone. Anyway, Oprah had a quote about success and overcoming obstacles, but I was obviously ill prepared. So, but what do you guys think? I'd love to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. I mean, think back to a point in your life when you accomplished something that was awesome. You probably had to work to get it. And your marriage is no different. There is joy waiting for you if you figure out how to do this relationship right. And I'm telling you, it's going to affect every other area of your life, because if your relationship at home isn't wonderful, it affects work, it affects your friendships, it affects how you parent. All of that is impacted by your marriage. And I'm telling you guys, it's worth the effort, because what happens is God wants to change how you are. He wants to change the character defects in you. And a lot of times he uses your spouse to do that. And same for your spouse. Like, he wants to change your husband or your wife as well. And so he puts two people together as part of his beautiful design with his sense of humor, right? Two imperfect humans trying to live out life together. And he's like, okay, let's see what you guys can do together. You know, I'm reminded in Romans, I think it's Romans chapter 5, maybe starting around verse 4, it says that we glory in our sufferings, or we rejoice in our sufferings, because suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance produces character. That's what we're talking about here. Changing your character, growing you as an individual. And then character produces hope, like hope that you don't have to stay where you are. Hope that there's a better future waiting for you and your spouse and your children and your home and your grandchildren, great-grandchildren. We're talking about a generational blessing. But only if you're willing to do the work and accept that you are imperfect, accept that there are things about you that need to change, that you got to learn to do life better. Because I've heard it said, I shared it on here before, Your ability to see sin or character defects in your life is as accurate as a carnival mirror. It's not my quote, I stole that. But think about that. Like, we get so blinded to our own imperfections so many times. But in the end, if we're willing to look inside and say, hey, these are the things, some things that do need to change. I do harbor resentment. I do let my pride get in the way. I am a poor communicator when my buttons are getting pushed and I'm feeling squeezed and I'm angry and my emotions are out of control. So let's learn how to do that better. Listen, I love you guys. Click share, come to YouTube, subscribe, come to the podcast, Debon Ignite Your Marriage, and subscribe. Share this with your friends because you know your friends have marriages that are suffering, they're hurting. They need to learn about how to do life and marriage better. I love you guys. Have a wonderful day. Bye.